While I was trying on wedding dress, my professor boyfriend abandoned me because of a video with his childhood friend and her baby. He said he mistook her for me that night, and then wanted me to raise his genius illegitimate child after we married. I scoffed and turned away, marrying a research prodigy instead to drive him crazy. Watch as I cut funding, exposed his fraud, see him abandoned by everyone, and starve to death in his rental apartment. Can you handle this melodramatic revenge story? While I was trying on wedding dress, my professor boyfriend suddenly received a message. It was a video with her baby sent by his childhood friend. In the video, she was sitting on a hospital bed holding a baby, clutching a report in her hand. My boyfriend abandoned me and rushed to the hospital. Half an hour later, he posted on social media, 10 years, circling back. The child is still yours. Afterward, he explained via text message. That night, I thought it was you. I didn't expect it to be her. Olivia is kind-hearted. She didn't want to tell me originally, but now that I know, I absolutely cannot let her face this alone. She's smarter than you, and the child is bound to be even more outstanding. We can't abandon a genius baby. You always said you didn't care about formalities. How about we postpone our wedding? After she finishes her postpartum recovery, I'll marry you, and the child will have your last name. Looking at the intimate pictures on social media, I let out a cold laugh. As the hidden investor in the research institute, he actually expected me to be a nanny for his genius baby. Turning around, I contacted the rival from the neighboring research institute. Didn't you say you were looking for a partner? I walked into the hospital room, and the air was full of laughter. Olivia held the newborn baby in her arms, a gentle smile on her face. Colleagues gathered around the bed, some sending flowers, others giving cash gifts. Congratulations. The baby is so adorable. Bound to be a genius baby. Olivia, you and Professor Robert finally have a result. I'm so happy for you. I stood at the doorway, but no one noticed me. Robert leaned by the window, looking at Olivia with doting eyes. When he saw me, a hint of guilt flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained that familiar confidence. Robert walked towards me, his lips curving slightly. Sarah, you're here too? Come take a look at the baby. He looks a lot like me. His casual tone made me want to laugh. I almost forgot I was Robert's fiancée. Olivia blinked and said softly, Professor Sarah, thank you for coming to see me. Everyone says you're generous and won't hold it against me. A colleague murmured in agreement. That's right, the baby is innocent. Professor Robert is so outstanding. He should have more children with excellent genes. I glanced at them indifferently, saying nothing. The room was filled with warmth and harmony, and I felt like an outsider. Robert stood in the center of the crowd, his eyes full of certainty and superiority. Olivia suddenly spoke. Robert, I want to talk to Professor Sarah alone. Hearing this, Robert took the colleagues out into the hallway. Olivia spoke softly, a glint of triumph in her eyes. Professor Sarah, after all, this child will live with you in the future. I'll make sure he learns a lot from you. I looked at her. Neither warm nor cold. Learn what? How to act spoiled or how to steal someone's boyfriend. Her face crumpled with feigned hurt. Professor Sarah, please don't misunderstand. I didn't do it on purpose. That night, it really was just an accident. I didn't want to argue with her and was about to leave, but she suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against her belly. Ah. Olivia suddenly shrieked. It hurts. My incision seems to have opened. The room instantly fell silent, and everyone looked over. Olivia frowned, looking at me tearfully. Professor Sarah, are you still angry? I know I wronged you. You can do anything to me. It's not too much. The more she spoke, the more pathetic she sounded, as if she had suffered immense grievance. Robert rushed over and pushed me away, his voice full of fury. Sarah, what are you doing? Olivia is still finishing her postpartum recovery. The colleagues also crowded around, some accusing me, others trying to mediate. Sarah, we're all colleagues. Don't take your anger out on a new mother. Exactly. Olivia is just a young woman. Go easy on her. Robert's face was cold, shielding Olivia like a precious treasure. Sarah, I really didn't expect this from you. His voice was icy. If you're angry, take it out on me. Don't hurt Olivia. She just gave birth. Can't you be more generous? I looked at him, saying nothing. He, however, seemed convinced I was in the wrong and continued to lecture me. I always thought you were sensible. I didn't expect you to be so petty. I won't forget what happened today. You should leave now and stop making things difficult for Olivia. The surrounding colleagues also cast strange looks my way. Olivia weakly tugged at Robert's sleeve. Professor Sarah might just be too sad. Don't blame her. I sneered internally, explaining nothing. I just turned and left. Stepping out of the hospital, the night wind hit my face. I pulled my coat tighter, but felt no warmth inside. Looking at the city lights outside the car window, my thoughts drifted back to the past. Back then, Robert and I were pursuing our doctorates together and entered the research institute together. We were the stars of our graduating class, lab partners. He pursued me actively, bringing me breakfast every day, doing experiments together. Everyone envied us later. We planned to get married step by step, but a year ago, Robert suddenly proposed accepting a doctoral student through an exception. He explained that Olivia was a graduate student he advised in college, that her family was poor and he wanted to give her an opportunity, and that he had watched Olivia grow up, treating her like a younger sister. But ever since Olivia arrived, Robert became increasingly distant from me. The two of them were always traveling and doing projects together. That one gathering, I couldn't make it. He didn't come home all night. The next day, he reeked of alcohol and only said he was dropping a colleague off. I believed him. Only today did I realize he had slept with Olivia that night, and he had hidden it from me for an entire year. The car stopped at the apartment complex entrance. I got out, a heavy stone in my heart. My phone pinged with notifications. It was the wedding photo proofs. I clicked on the photos and saw myself smiling happily, but the person beside me no longer inspired any anticipation. I forwarded the proofs to Robert and added a sentence, "Let's break up." Not long after, he called, his tone full of disbelief. "Sarah, don't be ridiculous. We've already taken our wedding photos." I said coldly, "There's no need anymore." Suddenly, the sound of a baby crying came from the other end of the line. He quickly coaxed, "Shh, don't cry, Olivia." "No, Sarah. Don't overthink. The person I love most has always been you, Olivia. Just wait a few more days. After she finishes her postpartum recovery, we'll register our marriage then." Sounds that made my face flush came from the other end of the phone. I felt nothing but mockery. He was cheating on me even while talking to me. He didn't even realize he had called me by the wrong name just now. I couldn't listen anymore. I gave him a perfunctory answer and hung up the phone. The house was eerily quiet. I sat for a while, then got up and started packing. First, I threw all of Robert's clothes and shoes into a suitcase. His toothbrush, toothpaste, face wash, razor, all went straight into the trash can. I didn't want to see anything that belonged to him anymore. Walking into the study or home office, I intended to clear out the cabinets. Halfway through, a dusty box on the top shelf caught my eye. Robert always liked collecting strange things. He never let me touch this box. I brought it down and opened it. Inside the box was a thick stack of envelopes. They were all in Olivia's handwriting. The paper reading "Dear Robert," each letter sickeningly sweet. As I flipped through the letters, my fingers trembled when I saw Robert's replies. I was stunned. The timeline of these letters almost perfectly overlapped with when he and I were together. The earliest one was even dated after we had just started our relationship. They wrote about trivial matters, feelings, and future plans. The letters also discuss going abroad for research together, saying when Olivia graduates, "I'll take you to Northern Europe to see the Northern Lights," and a little sun was drawn at the end. I had always thought Robert cheated a year ago. I never imagined they had been maintaining this romantic correspondence in secret all along. I gave a bitter laugh, put the letters back in the box, and threw it onto the pile of luggage by the door. My eyes felt a bit sore. I tilted my head back and rubbed my eyes hard. As I was packing the last bag of trash, my phone rang. Robert's voice was light and cheerful. "Sarah, come to the Research Institute early tomorrow. I have a surprise for you. Something that will definitely make you happy." I held the phone, silent, and just hummed in response. On the other end, he continued talking to himself. "You've been moody lately. I know you feel wronged. Let's talk tomorrow, okay?" Looking around the room, already half empty, I said, "Okay, consider it our last meeting." The next morning, I went to the Research Institute. As I walked into the lobby, festive streamers were hung across the entrance. A banner read "Happy 1-month birthday, baby," with adoption ceremony specifically added. Cakes and flowers filled the Research Institute. Colleagues had already arrived, gathered in lively groups, as if attending a grand celebration. Robert stood in the center, dressed in a tailored suit, his expression cheerful. Seeing me, he immediately beckoned me over, his face full of confidence. "Sarah, you're here? Today isn't just the baby's 1-month celebration. It's also the adoption ceremony we specially prepared for you. From now on, The child is ours. I almost burst out laughing. An adoption ceremony? What kind of bizarre surprise is this? What did Robert even think I was? A free nanny to raise his illegitimate child? Had his brain been infected by the experimental bacteria or culture in the lab to think this was a happy family? Ignoring him, I walked straight to the table and suddenly noticed a familiar Petri dish among the various items for the baby's first birthday. It still had an experimental number on it, and there were water stains on the side. It was the experimental material I had just finished working with the day before yesterday. I frowned. That was the result of my research. How could Robert just casually throw the Petri dish out like a toy? Olivia held the child, smiling gently and meekly. She deliberately forced the child's hand into my Petri dish, as if showing off. My heart sank, even though I knew the culture in the Petri dish was already contaminated. I couldn't help but walk over quickly and reach out to snatch it back. Just then, Olivia suddenly shrieked, "Ow!" She fell backward, and the baby in her arms fell to the ground as well. The entire lobby went silent instantly. Olivia held the baby and cried out, "My baby." Tears streamed down her face. Olivia choked out her accusation, "Professor Sarah, how could you push my child?" The scene was chaotic. A group of people rushed forward to help pick up the baby, but I picked up the Petri dish from the ground. Olivia picked up the baby, who had a cut on his forehead. It wasn't a serious injury, but she kept wiping it, smearing blood all over the child's face. It looked horrifying. Protecting the child, she sobbed while looking at me. "Professor Sarah, are you still mad at me? If you're angry, take it out on me. The child doesn't understand anything." Her voice was soft and weak, making everyone around frown. "Sarah, you've gone too far." Robert's face was long, standing in front of Olivia. "It's just a Petri dish. Is it more important than the child? You can't tell what's important. How can I possibly trust you to raise the child? You must apologize to Olivia." I retorted directly. "I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I apologize?" "Robert, get this straight. My experimental Petri dish is not a toy. How dare you take it out for the child's first birthday items? Do you know there are experimental bacteria or culture that haven't been processed yet?" Robert frowned, changing the subject. "In your heart, there's only research, and no room for me at all. Precisely because I value today's adoption ceremony, I took something most precious to you for the first birthday items. This time, I truly laughed. If you want to be generous, why don't you play around with your own experimental bacteria or culture? Was it you or Olivia who deliberately orchestrated this to target me?" Olivia wiped her tears, continuing to play on emotions. "Professor Sarah, I didn't mean to target you. This child will eventually be raised by you anyway, but you hate him so much. I'm really scared." Hearing this, Robert became more assertive. "Sarah, you weren't like this before. You make me feel like I don't know you. You've changed," I said bluntly. "Robert, whether I've changed or not, don't you know? You cheated on me, and now you want me to be your child's stepmother? Why should I put up with it?" Robert laughed in anger, his tone harsh. "Sarah, you just think too highly of yourself. You only know how to do experiments and will never understand how to love someone." I shrugged, saying each word clearly. "That's right. Experiments are more important than you, Robert. I stopped wanting to put up with it a long time ago. Let's break up," Robert said. "Okay, then let's break up." A silence fell over the scene. I turned and left, without looking back. Olivia cried even harder, holding the child, saying the child was scared and his face had turned pale. Robert immediately panicked and rushed her and the child to the hospital. I stayed in the lab, cleaning up the mess. The Petri dish was shattered on the floor, and a lot of experimental data was ruined. While handling the hazardous waste, I reorganized the papers that had been disturbed. At night, I was the only one left in the office. No one asked if I was tired. No one cared if I was upset. These past few days, Robert had been with Olivia, even renting her an apartment in an upscale apartment complex. His social media was filled with posts about the child and Olivia. Some colleagues even passed along the news that he had specifically changed the first author's name on a new paper to Olivia. Looking at that paper, my name conspicuously absent from the author list, I just felt it was laughable. All the experiments I had done for so long amounted to nothing in the end. Robert gave me some space, perhaps thinking it was time to smooth things over. He called an intern and asked them to order flowers as an apology for me. The intern was surprised. "Professor Robert, didn't you know? Professor Sarah resigned a long time ago." When Robert heard I had resigned, he froze. He didn't believe it, thinking it was just a tantrum. He even suspected the graduate students were colluding with me. He continued to spend time with Olivia as usual, appearing in her social media posts daily, helping buy formula, changing diapers, as if nothing had changed in his life. But gradually, he realized my voice was missing from his surroundings. No one organized materials for him for meetings, and no one helped him fix problems immediately. He picked up his phone, calling and texting me repeatedly, but all he saw was "user has blocked you." Robert started to panic. He rushed back to the research institute, wanting to see if I was just sulking. But when he entered his office, there were 2 large suitcases stacked by the door, all his belongings. He opened my office door and found all my things gone, leaving only a resignation letter lying quietly on the desk. Holding the resignation letter, he finally felt uneasy. Robert had always thought that the investment company behind him was an established pharmaceutical giant with ample funds, unlikely to withdraw easily. But he never dreamed that I was actually the heir to that very pharmaceutical company. I just hadn't revealed my identity all these years. Before, I quietly supported his projects and never questioned how he spent the money. But now, I had lost my last shred of patience. Members of the project team also started gossiping among themselves, saying Robert hadn't really done much research over the years, constantly pushing the employees below him to work overtime to get data, while he himself used connections and drew a high salary. Several interns complained about not getting paid for overtime, and team members were also looking for opportunities to jump ship. Robert was frantic, but helpless. His former confidence and superiority had vanished. He walked around the research institute with a dark expression every day. At night, he would still sit in the lab, wondering if I would suddenly appear, helping him fix things like I used to. But now, no one helped him anymore. The atmosphere in the research institute became increasingly heavy. Robert finally began to understand that without me, he was nothing. Just when everything was getting worse, news suddenly broke online about Robert's academic fraud. Someone anonymously reported that his data was falsified and experimental results couldn't be replicated. Soon, netizens exploded, with all sorts of exposes and negative information surfacing. Some dug up his mediocre college grades, revealing he got into the research institute through connections, and others questioned if he was just a connection hire with no real ability. His academic forum account was exposed, and all the boastful posts he had made in the past became a laughingstock. Online discussions were rampant. Some even doxed his college and research institute advisors, questioning how they could have mentored such a student. But the storm didn't stop there. As the investigation deepened, Olivia was also implicated. It was discovered that her degree or credentials were questionable, and her master's thesis was actually borrowed from the research institute. The very high plagiarism rate showed the content was almost identical. Netizens immediately followed the trail, revealing that while Olivia loudly claimed to work hard, she was also playing on emotions around Robert, getting fast-tracked and praised excessively. Her social media comments section was completely flooded with waves of accusations. Seeing her situation become dangerous, Olivia panicked. She started claiming injustice everywhere, even posting videos online crying and directly accusing Robert of sexual harassment. Crying, she said, "I'm just a helpless girl. Professor Robert used his position to force me to help him falsify data and threatened to ruin my future if I spoke out." With that, all the blame shifted back to Robert. Colleagues were on edge. No one dared to go near Robert and Olivia anymore. His former glory, in the blink of an eye, turned into a joke. While the scandal was raging domestically, Michael and I were quietly doing research in a university lab abroad. Away from all the drama and rumors, life suddenly became very pure. Michael was a very caring man. He always remembered my favorite coffee blend unintentionally. H'd bring me a warm cappuccino during lunch breaks. Sometimes H'd casually bring up things from college, remembering details about the professor boyfriend who cheated and had a child, how I then married a research prodigy, the competitions I participated in, and even the cafeteria food I occasionally complained about. I looked at him in surprise. "How do you remember all that?" He looked at me, his serious gaze unwavering. "Sarah, you were so radiant back then. Everyone remembered you." At that moment, something soft quietly sprouted in my heart. Unlike Robert's care, which came with a sense of superiority, Michael always managed to disarm me with the most ordinary gestures. He liked the sunshine, and he was willing to share half of his light with me. Over time, I found myself increasingly unable to do without his company. His presence became my daily routine, easy, comfortable, and full of small, exciting surprises. Days passed quietly like this, every day. We researched papers, did experiments, ate, worked overtime, and occasionally walked in the nearby park. He was very good with words and always made me laugh. Sometimes, when experiments weren't going well, a light-hearted joke from him could brighten my mood for the whole day. One day, after finishing an experiment, I casually asked Michael, "Didn't your family ever think about a business alliance marriage for you?" Michael looked at me deeply. "I already have someone I like. I won't have a business alliance marriage. Even the daughter of Derui Pharmaceutical?" He shook his head. "Certainly not." "Wait, as the future heir of Derui Pharmaceutical," I smiled at him. "Are you serious?" "Yes, if you don't want to. Forget I said anything." Michael was stunned for a second, then, as if afraid I'd change my mind, said, "Yes." I couldn't wish for it more. He was as happy as a child. The next day, he made it official on social media, with a photo of our lab group and the caption, "Wish fulfilled." Colleagues from the lab came to congratulate us. Someone teased Michael, "You've liked her for so long." And finally it paid off. Michael didn't shy away, openly admitting his long-held affection. Michael's parents had always worried about their son's marriage. Nearing 30 without a girlfriend, they thought their son might have different preferences. Hearing that Michael had found someone to marry directly, his parents were completely supportive of the alliance. On the day of the engagement party, the ballroom or banquet hall was decorated lavishly and lively. Michael wore a well-fitted designer suit, his handsome face beaming with joy. I wore a white silk gown, holding his hand. I was talking to friends when I suddenly heard a commotion at the entrance. Robert had appeared in the ballroom or banquet hall. His suit was slightly wrinkled, his expression haggard. He stood outside the crowd, his gaze fixed on Michael and me. The ballroom or banquet hall suddenly fell silent, and everyone looked towards the entrance. Michael and I exchanged a glance. He immediately tightened his grip on my hand, shielding me. Robert gritted his teeth, walking in step by step, his voice low. "Sarah, you can't get engaged to him." Robert's face was extremely pale, his eyes full of resentment and disbelief. He stared intensely at me, his voice trembling. "Sarah, we were together for so many years. Can you really just let go?" I looked at him calmly, my voice flat. "Robert, we are over. You have no right to say these things here. And you shouldn't disturb my life anymore." He lowered his head, his voice hoarse. "I know I was foolish before. I'm sorry. I've completely cut ties with Olivia. I swear it's only you from now on. Let's start over, okay?" I wasn't moved, only feeling a complete sense of calm inside. "Whatever happens between you and Olivia is none of my business. You don't need to tell me." He raised his head, his eyes slightly red, his voice low. "Sarah, I truly know I made a mistake. I've thought a lot these past few days. If it weren't for that night, we would be married by now. You've always been the person I cared about most. Robert, stop talking. The moment you cheated, our relationship ended." He wanted to take another step closer but stopped himself. Robert cried in front of me for the first time, pleading, "Give me another chance, okay? I can change anything. Just come back." I just shook my head. Robert finally couldn't hold back anymore, and tears streamed down his face. He stood there, as if all strength had been drained from him. "Sarah, do you really not want to come back?" I didn't reply. Instead, looking up at Michael, Michael put his arm around my shoulder and scoffed. "Sarah doesn't need to come back, because you're simply not worthy of her." Robert's expression turned angry and aggrieved. He pointed at Michael and shouted, "Don't think you're some good guy. You're clearly a playboy, trying to sweet talk and toy with Sarah's feelings. Are you worthy?" Michael's expression was calm, his tone unwavering. "At least I won't lie to her. And I won't hesitate in a relationship. You have no right to question me, and certainly no right to cause a scene here." Robert's face turned bright red. He still wanted to step forward but was stopped by Michael. Michael beckoned to the security guards at the door and calmly instructed, "Please escort this gentleman out. He is not my guest." Security guards quickly came over. Robert tried to struggle, but no one paid him any attention anymore. Michael took my hand and led me back among the guests. My heart had never felt as resolute as it did now. Later, Robert continued to bother me for a while. He constantly sent messages, called, and even asked others to send me gifts frequently, but I consistently ignored him, giving only a cold response every time I saw him. He finally realized that he could never go back to the past in this lifetime and had no choice but to leave soon. The news about Robert's academic fraud fully escalated. Both the university and the research institute began investigations. Ultimately, he was fired. And no one in the academic world dared to hire him. When he applied for jobs, he was either rejected or directly blacklisted. Having lost his position and reputation, he could only hide in a rental apartment with Olivia. Olivia's life wasn't any better. Her degree or credentials were found to be fake, her master's thesis was invalidated, and the university directly expelled her. Her affair with a university professor was exposed, and social media, online forums were full of comments criticizing her. She had no income and had to start live streaming to support the child. But viewers only saw her as a joke. The comments are chat filled with mockery and sarcasm. Later, she fell for a live streaming agency scam and was defrauded of several million. Robert, at this point, still couldn't let go of his pride and refused to go home to ask his parents for help. His parents were considered a middle-class family in the city. Seeing their son do something so shameful, they didn't want to deal with him either. Robert survived by selling old items and collecting cardboard boxes in his rental apartment. Ultimately, he starved to death in his rental apartment because he had no money for food. I heard these news from friends and only sighed faintly, not caring any further. Meanwhile, Michael and his life only got better. We got married, and our families and friends were very supportive. We continued to work side by side in the lab, achieving breakthroughs in our research and winning several important awards. In our free time, we would travel and take vacations together. I never looked back, and the rest of my life was peaceful and happy.